All right, so why don't you introduce yourself?
My name is Miles Eiton. I am the former co-president of the New College Student Alliance, aka our student government. I'm the founder of the New College Black Student Union.
My name is Lien Al-Fatafta. I'm Palestinian. I live in Jordan. I'm an international student here at New College.
My name is Paul Lauriston. I'm a fourth-year thesis student at New College of Florida. I'm studying economics, and I'm the president of the Black Student Union.
There's always something that I want to contribute to a space if I'm going to be inhabiting it. So I came to Sarasota and I said, hey, I'm here at this cool liberal arts college. They said you could be whatever you want to be. So I said, sure, I'm going to be all these things. Like, let's go.
When I first came here, initially, I started organizing to increase awareness about the Middle East in general and just Arab culture specifically. But then I started getting more and more involved with other groups on campus, and I became really passionate about institutional diversity. There weren't course offerings that I was interested in as a woman of color from the Middle East who's Muslim, who would like to see my culture represented on campus. So I started doing a lot of just institutional work regarding that, increasing diversity on campus.
There was like 10 black people on the entirety of the campus when I first got there. But yeah, and like my perception honestly was this is a sea of whiteness. That was my first perception.
I was kind of involved with Reina, who was the previous Vice President of Diversity and Inclusion. And I was really passionate about that kind of work. I felt like it would be really cool for us to have more people of color in a cabinet, you know, and just to try to like shift things around on campus, kind of like shift the status quo on campus.
I got involved with the student government at the school to this point as diversity representative. Me and Paul were just hanging around and I said, hey, you know, if we ran for student body president, we definitely win.
You hit me up. Like you hit me up, Miles Eiton. Shout out. And it's like, I don't know why, but it was just like, yo, do you want to run for president? Like I wanted to get more involved with the community, but I didn't know how. And I guess like just it kind of coalesced with the fact that like I was very, very aware of some problems going on in this institution, specifically as it pertains to diversity and inclusion, whatever they want to call it, you know. And I felt like, how do I position myself in a place to affect positive change most efficiently?
We were elected by what I believe someone told me was the largest margin of victory for student body presidents to have won by. We got 270 votes, and the next leading amount of votes didn't crack 100, definitely. So that felt great.
I got the job, and I guess part of me anticipated a slight pushback because it was a predominantly like people of color cabinet, but I did not expect like for us to be harassed in the way that we were. We started getting emails from one of the counselors, and these emails were saying that we're not doing our job properly, that we're inadequate. But we would go over everything, and you know, our work checked all the boxes. We were sending our emails on time. We're giving our updates. We're doing the, the work that we should be doing, all the red tape. Even we were going out of our way sometimes to do work that we shouldn't be doing. But they kept just hinting that like we're not adequate for the job that we had, and that if things keep going this way, they will try to get us like just removed from the cabinet.
We started noticing a lot more of the advice and criticism from these members of the student court, these two members, turn into just straight up pushback. And it just started becoming disrespectful, you know, like blatantly like speaking over people at meetings and cutting people off and being rude, insulting people. So it got to the point where our executive secretary and our vice president of diversity and inclusion, both women of color, said, we are going to take this up with the student court, with you guys, because this is ridiculous.
You know, like just to have a white student, like honestly exhibit obsessive behavior about impeaching almost everyone, every person of color on the cabinet, to me was like beyond belief.
student government is a valuable, just like thing, you know, for people to get experience. But at the end of the day, it's just like people out here having emotional breakdowns because some person is like is tripping on power, you know? Like you can have one person trip on power and like literally like fuck up the lives of everybody on the cabinet.
The Chief Justice encouraged them strongly to consider mediation, and essentially to just drop it just because, you know, in his words, elections would be expensive. And that got really funny when weeks later, he would sit us down, me and Paul, in an office, our office, and say, there's about to be a case against you in student court and you probably should resign because you will not win. But we didn't do anything. Paul Shehu and I decided to accompany the incoming president, Jimena Pedrosa, to the Presidential Leadership Conference at Washington, D.C. So as we get to this conference, there is quite a few students of color out here, and it was a pretty powerful feeling knowing, okay, it's not just us, you know. Primarily white institutions all across the board are seeing their students of color, you know, stand up and take on these roles. But, you know, then we stop and talk to them. Every black president or vice president, there was always a story.
The FBI is investigating a potential hate crime at American University in Washington. Students found several bananas Monday hanging from small ropes tied like nooses. Racist messages were written on the bananas.
This is not the first racist incident here at American University. In September, white students were accused of throwing a banana at one black student and leaving a rotten banana in the dorm room of another. This latest incident happened on the same day that a black woman became student body president, a first for this university.
I set off to Washington, D.C., first stop at American University. Taylor declined to take part in the interview.
There was an instance where white males were throwing bananas in dorms at black girls. And no, okay, yeah, so this was like a 2-banana incident. It was like the noose was hung with the banana and the black female president's name on it and her Greek organization, Alpha Kappa Alpha, on it. It was a very big issue. It was purposely targeted towards her. And it was like during the first day of her office, she was the first black woman to be the student body president. So it was a particularly targeted against, they wanted to make it very clear this is a target to black women, and that was devastating. Then even earlier in the fall, that was when white males were throwing bananas at black females on campus. And that was my first year here, so I was like, whoa, where the heck am I?
And it's no coincidence that it was like, I think she was sworn in at, midnight, and it was like 2 a.m. that the nooses and bananas were put up on campus. I think particularly, obviously to target her, but just the fact that she was, and is a black woman and was coming into a position of power as the first time as a student body president on our campus.
There were Confederate flag posters with cotton balls that were like printed out and hung up in different places around campus, one of which was directly outside of my class. When we got out, it was like almost midnight, and there was the poster over announcements for different black student events that were being held.
And of course, like, campus police were like, "Are you sure this was race related?"
We have some real deep-seated hatred of women in this country that we don't want to touch at all. Even though there's still a lot of racism, for example, that is here at AU that we need to overcome. People were more accepting of a black man coming into power than a black woman coming into power.
When incidents like these occur on a daily basis and no action is taken into play, people are not like surprised anymore because they know that this happens. So like, there's no point of protesting or rallying when obviously the administration is not doing anything. I mean, they host town hall meetings, but there's no action like this saying, and there's no execution.
It feels kind of like they're trying to shut us up rather than coming to like a fair solution. Like, what they don't want is for us to shut down the parking garage again. What they don't want is for us to have a riot on the quad. American kind of promotes itself as this very liberal, very like inclusive environment, which they are to a degree. But like those subconscious biases, like prejudice, like bubble over from time to time. And that's what happens with the banana incidents, the noose incidents, the yik yak incident. And the conversation was good, but we're kind of at a point now that we know AU is racist, so people are less fazed by it.
They say like, oh, it was just a joke. Like, people feel very personal about these opinions, and they feel as if those opinions are being attacked when people push back on these jokes.
There's a clear feeling of students of color having incidents happen to them on rotation, and it's only a few of them that are gonna make the news, and it's only a few of them that we even get to know about. And the incident with Taylor just happened to be the one that blew up.
Hate and racism and bigotry have no place on this campus, and that's not what we want here on this university, not as a student, not as student government president, and on behalf of the AU community, that is not what we need here, and this is not what we need anywhere in this country.
So this young man out of Clemson, he is a student vice president, and what he did was he sat down during the Pledge of Allegiance, aligning himself with the NFL players who protested. Students Senate voted 40-18 to impeach Jaron Stewart.
Hi, my name is Jaron Stewart. I'm a junior here at Clemson University. I study criminal justice and Spanish. I'm a double major. I'm from San Diego, California, and I've been at Clemson for 3 years. Previous to student government, I was in the RA. I really love that. I had 50 residents who I love to death. We still have dinner on the weekends. I'm playing on the rugby team here, and I really, really love that. That's been my family since I got here. My coach has had my back since as soon as I stepped on campus. And I'm the president of Theta Chi fraternity, and I've mentored those guys, make sure they're doing the right things. Being from California, I know that I've always wanted to make social change. And picking between a UC Berkeley or a Clemson, I can make much more change at Clemson University than I can at a UC Berkeley. Hello, how are you? So this is Fort Hill. It is our resident plantation home on campus. Yeah, when you visit a cemetery, there's a very laid out path for where you're gonna walk. Clemson, I mean, I don't know where not to step. Everywhere could be history, everywhere could be an ancestor, everywhere could be a gravesite. Our centerpiece of our campus commemorates such a time of slavery and bigotry.
That's still standing.
Yep, still standing strong. I was walking right here about 3 years ago. I was walking with a friend, and there was like just bananas hanging on a banner, and I just thought, like that's typical college kids, typical college town, like you just do stupid stuff. And I woke up in the morning to see the picture of bananas hanging on a banner everywhere, just sprawled on social media. And I was really trying to understand. I was like, oh, is it funny or something like that? And then I zoomed in on the sign, and I saw the banner was commemorating African Americans on Fort Hill, and that the banana was like a derogatory statement towards African Americans, calling them like porch monkeys, referring backwards. And being an out-of-state student, I could never fathom that initially because I didn't understand the racial tensions that exist in the South. So to me, I just thought, oh, kids were being funny. But to everyone that was present here and that's been here throughout the struggle of being a black student on a PWI campus, they understood it initially, like what type of an attack it was. So after it had blown up on social media about the banana hanging from the sign commemorating African Americans on Fort Hill, we had a march from Fort Hill all the way to Sykes right here. And we walked in, and everyone said their piece. So there were some spoken word parts of it. There were strolls from various NPHCs, and they were all demonstrating their angst about the situation. And then we want to say 3 hours later, our good president comes down and has a camera rolling right behind him, and he's like, all right, let's sit down, let's talk about this. A very political response. Look at me like talking to the people, look at me actually not dealing with the issues, but looking as I am. And everyone was put up with it, because essentially there have been so many incidents beforehand. We had a Christmas party, there was an MLK blackface party years beforehand, so the same students that had experienced that were still here. And so they had gotten used to the administrative response where it was just nothing. nothing at all. My first article that I was mentioned in politically was about the sitting down for the Pledge of Allegiance, the taking a knee, the finding solidarity with the NFL players, the larger grassroots movement. And I said that I had never felt comfortable in student government, and after taking the knee, I could kind of figure out who those people were and the way they looked at me and the way they responded by my gesture. And once that article came out, that was somewhat how things kind of got started, I'd say. Like, that's where I felt that there were larger tensions at play. And the week after we took a knee, we held a forum, for the greater campus, because we go to a very Southern school. So with that comes a Southern mindset. And, our campus was somewhat enraged, but also just the people's aunts and uncles were asking them, what's going on at Clemson? What's going on at Clemson? People were calling the donation center, like, I'm not giving any more money because of what's going on in student government, et cetera, et cetera. So I talked to campus. And when I was at campus, our forum, I met, several veterans and people that are in Greek organizations, tour guides and whatnot. And one of the student vets asked me, like, why did I sit instead of take a knee? And I was like, you know what? I'll take a knee if you can continue this conversation. And so that actually changed my gesture. While the rest of senators sat down, I took a knee because that was a great way to start a conversation with someone.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The week after, there was a motion for impeachment. It was unsuccessful. There was an objection raised by Senator Thomas Marshall, and with that objection raised, it didn't go through, essentially, and we thought that was the end of it. We have this conservative writer on our campus who was in COC for a long time and claimed that procedure had been broken, and with that procedure being broken, that there should be a reintroduction of the impeachment because we didn't follow the rules in the way it was said, which was actually true. The Senate president made a mistake. And so the following week, I had to go to DC for a ACC advocacy day. And while I was away, I already knew I was getting texts from people like, yo, it's gonna go down today, et cetera, et cetera. My phone was blowing up. I essentially kind of knew what was coming. And then they had the debate here for 2 or 3 hours. And they voted 40-18 to go to trial for impeachment. And with that, it essentially blew up from Uproxx to Daily Mail to Seattle, the Seattle Post. People were speaking about the impeachment trial, what was going on here. It was one of the toughest experiences of my life because suddenly I would open my laptop and it'd be like the homepage for Microsoft Edge, and it was USA Today's top 5 stories, and I would just see my face. And it was just, it was a lot. While senators here tried to make it about one issue, it was so clear based on the timeline of what was at play here, what was really going on. The person that levied the impeachment charges, Miller Hoffman, his Twitter account will say, Black Lives Matter is a terrorist organization, they belong in jails, et cetera, et cetera. Anything you hear Ben Shapiro or, I forgot the alt-right guy, but anything somewhat conservative, you would hear that just retweeted on his Twitter. This guy is a Southern racist through and through. They attempted to portray me as this sexual predator. And to a certain extent, it was incredibly powerful because people have grown up in the South. It doesn't just go away. When they talk about the Strom Thurmonds that said, no niggers in Congress because they'll rape your wives, and they wanted segregation, like that trickle down effect of systemic racism, that's ingrained. And so even though they may say that out loud, it's just what their parents believe, what their grandparents believe, and it's what they believe. And so this trope of this big black man is hurting an innocent white woman was what they were going for. And in essential, there was also components of our campus, we have a secret society. So at the University of Alabama, they have something called the Machine, and that elects student body presidents to Panhellenic, to IFC, all the way down to club sports, Frisbee president. Here we have something called Tiger Brotherhood, which is run by our advisor to the vice president. It's run by Rusty Gwill, who is the advisor. And essentially they have students that are the leaders of certain organizations, bring them in, and they help encapsulate what they would call the student body and just perpetuate the cycle. So leadership, it's all run by the same people. And student government is like the mantle, it's the fruit. And Tiger Brotherhood has the student body president, has the student body vice president every single year. And Killian and I, being outside tickets, we came in and we disrupted that. And they chose to attack, because it wasn't necessarily that we had took it from him this year. My potential to run again wouldn't be a fluke in the system. It would mean the system is broken, and then the Tiger Brotherhood would lose all of its allure. It became so much about impeachment. It wasn't about the $3,500 we raised for international disaster relief after Mexico, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic. You know, none of that mattered. It was, I want to impeach him. This is the guy we're going to impeach. And it seemed as if no one was on my side except for people that looked like me. To have an impeachment trial where you only have 13 minority senators and the rest are white, trying to explain the concepts such as racism and segregation and prejudice to people who've never experienced racism, segregation, or prejudice, I might as well have been giving them a nursery rhyme while they were telling, this is the narrative we understand, this is what we want to say against you. Like no one, I had to convince people of something that they've never experienced or really thought existed. Colin Kaepernick sacrificed his career to bring light to an issue that he didn't have to deal with whatsoever. He did not have to lose his career. I mean, he's a Super Bowl champion. Like, he did not have to, but he took a fall for, you know, others. And being in a position of power, we have the platform to take a fall for others. And that's what it is. You know, you have to hold up the roof so other people can walk through. And in kneeling for the Pledge of Allegiance, it was to show, one, that students of color matter, because oftentimes in media you don't see anyone that looks like you. In your classrooms here at Clemson, you don't see anyone that looks like you. I think it's like 8% of African Americans have PhDs. So in your professional field as a college professor, no one looks like you. You know, it was the, how can we intimidate the minority students here? And we can take out their leader. You know, they didn't like seeing a minority in the highest form of power, even as the vice president. You know, if I was president, like seeing me in a predominantly white space, people did not agree with that. They felt that it was wrong and they had to do something about it. They acted on it through impeachment.